Ladies and gentlemen, we're now joined by a live guest today. In fact, I'm now joined by Pooja Mehra, who's an author and journalist who's now joining us. Thank you very much, Pooja, for taking the time out and speaking with us here on ET. Now, I want to ask you first things, because the IMF question was addressed by the Foreign Secretary today as well, and yesterday as well. In a briefing, he stated that India will be putting out its position at the IMF. However, it really depends on the board and the kind of decision that it takes. What are you anticipating on what the board is going to decide so far as, a bailout package for Pakistan is concerned? Because you see the chorus is building globally on against terrorism and terror emanating from Pakistan.
Sumita, thanks. The board, I think what it does will depend on what the big voting members, that is the US, China and EU would do. I think India would, I expect, certainly express reservations at the minimum, and perhaps also ask for blocking the funds, if not stalling them, if not in position of strict conditions. But whether or not this will go through, as was said, would depend on what the board does. And the board, we know in the fund, not all members have equal voting rights. The US, China, EU have larger voting rights. And if India has done some of the work behind the scenes, expressed our reservations to these voting members, then they may concur with India. But what I'm told, I did speak with a few people, what I'm told is that normally what happens is that once the board usually goes along with what the staff recommendation is. And in this particular board meeting for this particular agenda item, the staff recommendation at this point does not include India's reservations. But I suppose the final outcome could also include some of the other things that India could raise, which could be that India could ask for conditionalities. India could say that Pakistan must be asked to show how it's using the money. Remember that when this loan was approved, it was Pakistan was expected to reduce its standard things like fiscal consolidation, etc. So India could very well say that we want more information from Pakistan, and we want this information to be monitored. We want more data reporting conditions. We want to know what Pakistan is doing, for instance, with its defense budget. That would be important. And certainly that would, I suppose, make it a bit uncomfortable for Pakistan.
Absolutely. And the fact that, the strike and these escalations which have come in from Pakistan in the midst of, just ahead of this board meeting, will definitely have a crucial impact. But let me ask you, because you said that, every country has a different voting right. So how difficult will it be for IMF to not given that there is going to be more accountability, because the new US administration is kind of averse to giving aid. So will there be more pressure on IMF to not hand out aids?
That frankly depends on how the US decides to vote. We don't know how the US will decide to vote. I did see a statement unrelated to the IMF meeting.
What are you anticipating? What is your expectation?
Vice President Vance, where he said that it's not our business, it's between India and Pakistan. So if they continue to take that stand also within this particular matter, then it's difficult to say. But I suppose India would have worked behind the scenes. India would have worked phone lines. And India would try its best. What we could also try for is for the statement that comes out of the board eventually, for that to express or at least reflect some of India's concerns. Ultimately the thing is that Pakistan is a member of the IMF, and
so
if
Pooja,
they ask for support, sorry, you're saying something.
Right. But yes, Pooja, but there has to be more accountability, right, on how this aid is going to be utilized, and, how is Pakistan going to be using this aid? So are you expecting more accountability this time around, given the fact that, like I was saying, that, there's just been a massive terrorist attack from terrorist groups that are based on Pakistani soil?
I and every Indian would very much like that. But we have to see what the board says. I think India's entire effort would be to make the board to see its point. But it ultimately depends on whether US, Europe, and China, will see India's point, and if they would vote along with India on this. That's what it depends on. That's what it hinges on.
Right. So there might be some concern on China's side, but when you also spoke about, what U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance actually spoke about, which essentially is the fact that this is not our matter to meddle in, and we are a separate entity, and India is not going to listen to us. Pakistan is not going to listen to us. However, we can take diplomatic measures, the diplomatic route to de-escalate tensions. He did say that the United States has also condemned terrorism. They've also, condemned the terrorist attack that happened on Indian soil. So, of course, expectations also building up so far as the United States stance and what it's going to be, that is concerned. But let me ask you another question on, Pakistan's economy and, India's actions. Will India's actions have a more long-lasting impact when it comes to having a chokehold on Pakistan's economy?
India's actions, which specific actions are you talking about?
Well, the diplomatic actions that we took, and that actually included, the abeyance of the Indo-Waters Treaty, that is supposed to have a major impact, right?
Yes, of course. Pakistan's economy and large section of their society depends on agriculture, and their fields are fed by the waters from these rivers. That certainly is something that Pakistan would be very much concerned about. That apart, Pakistan's economy, as the IMF Article 4 statement itself put out just in March, says their economy is not performing to its potential. That's because Pakistan has not been investing in, health, in education. There is no business environment. There aren't enough investments. Their GDP growth was just about 2.6% this year. Their economy is not performing well macroeconomically. Their macroeconomic stability is not ideal, to say the least. As it is, their economy is not performing well, and the kind of adventurism that we are seeing from them. I'm not an expert in defense matters, but kind of things that they're doing. What exactly is their priority? Getting their economy back on track doesn't even seem like is their priority. So I'm not sure it is possible to be too hopeful and optimistic about Pakistan's economic potential.
Right. Right, Pooja, one final question before we let you go, and I'll come back to the point about IMF. Do you anticipate an impasse at the IMF meeting?
I have no way of knowing how, like I said, the majority voting would go, how the large countries with large voting rights would vote. If they do see India's point, and, if they vote a lot like how India would like them to vote, then certainly. But that's an if. We have no information. I have no way of knowing how that will happen. I would really hope that it would not go through in the board, and leave it at that.
Right. So all eyes now on tonight's IMF meeting and the outcome it has, and what the board decides will be interesting to see. Thank you very much, Pooja, for joining us and sharing your thoughts with us. Ladies and gentlemen, time now to move on to the other